Tighten up.
This is the OTP presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans, celebrating 76 years of providing Tennesseans with high-quality health coverage at affordable prices. Visit FBHP today to learn more about their history in Tennessee and to get a quote. That's FBHP. My name is Mike Keith, and you know this man. You know Double J, Jeff Jarrett. We're going to run down some of it.
Oh, stop it.
Do you realize you've held over 80 championships?
Oh. Has Wikipedia ever lied to you, Mike? No,
yes, but I went through. I did some counting.
Okay,
and I mean, you have held over 80 championships. WWE Hall of Fame in 2018, which is Wikipedia had that right.
They did.
That's
they
right.
Did.
I've got you as an 11-time world champion.
It depends on Mexico.
Okay.
Some people say 12 times, sometimes 10 times, and then there's kind of a gray area. But I'll whatever. It's your show. So
no.
Look, it's professional wrestling. Believe it or not, it is scripted. So you script this show any way you want.
Well, your podcast is fantastic. Episode 129 just dropped. My World with Jeff Jarrett, and you can get that anywhere you get your podcast.
Every Tuesday morning drops 5 a.m. Central.
How much do you love doing that with Conrad Thompson?
You know, what a bizarre story that I still kind of scratch my head, and he's one of my best friends. He still likes to kind of gig me, and I'll make him proud. I wore the My World podcast logo, but he asked me for 3 or 4 years, Mike, and I told him, and you've been around locker rooms your whole life, I told Conrad, I said, nobody wants to hear my stories. I said, I've told them in bars, in bus rides, in plane rides. He said, you've got a fascinating story. He said, just hear me out. I just kind of told him no for a couple of years, and then he kind of caught me at the right time and said, hey, let's sit down. Let me kind of lay out the business structure. And I said, okay, I'm all ears. And when he just went into the format, which is different, we never have a guest. The star of each episode is not a guest, and certainly not me or Conrad. It's the story. Yeah, and which that kind of clicked with me that the wrestling fans, and we've got a research team and a social media team, and obviously the advertisers have come on board in a great way, which kind of shocks me in one way, and then the other way, it's so quantifiable. You know, they know the codes and the product we're selling and everything that goes with it. So from a business perspective, it's been great. Personally, it has been what a lens I get to get through. I'll have a lot of episodes at the end. I will walk away from it and with a lot of gratitude, because when I kind of look back, I'm on year 37, and, you know, go back and live my Memphis days or WCW or WWF at the time, and certainly the TNA days, starting a business with my father, and I could go on and on about it, but it's been so refreshing because, again, my research team, they go back and take clippings, and the journalists, wrestling journalists, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's been such a journey that I get to kind of look through it through those lens. And Conrad, he's the best in the business in the wrestling format. He's a fan, and there's a magic sauce in that he knows the questions to ask. And sometimes he'll get me emotional, then sometimes we'll get chuckling, and then the other times he'll push my buttons in the right way for me to really think through it. But it's been I love it. It's a highlight of my week. We sit down usually on Mondays, every now and then Fridays, the weekends. It depends on our schedules. But Mike, I absolutely love getting to do the podcast.
Well, you come by telling stories naturally because of your grandmother and your dad. I mean, your grandmother worked for Nick Goulas.
Yes.
And your dad is a legendary wrestling promoter. I mean, I remember when your dad wrestled. I watched your dad wrestle, Jerry Jarrett. And you know, so I know exactly who he is. And he ran Memphis, and so he ran one of the 22 territories.
Right.
And, I mean, you are truly third generation of not just professional wrestling, but storytelling.
Well, and that is something that it is such a leg up. And by the grace of God, I'm still active. But I try to tell guys that, you know, obviously, how can I say, we're not true sport. But I said even the World Series or opening day of any sport, it's all a story. You're a storyteller, just like him is. The sport is such a natural, easy story to tell that there's a protagonist and antagonist, and that's what a story's all about in every ball game. The home team and away. Then you have players involved in that story that it just, it's a movie for you guys every Sunday afternoon that the ratings speak for itself. And in the wrestling business, that's exactly what we do. We're episodic storytelling. Our TV shows, every Wednesday or every Friday or every Saturday lead to the big event, just like playoffs and Super Bowl and football. So, yeah, the storytelling does come easy, but it is something that from a real – before I ever had my first match, my grandmother and my dad, I got started the right way in that I never viewed the wrestling industry other than this is a business.
Right.
This is a business. This isn't a hobby. It's a family business, and it's got to be run like a business, and that's paid a lot of dividends for me.
I knew who you were long before wrestling because you were at Good Pasture.
Oh, gosh.
And we overlap in high school, and you're a good basketball player.
I don't know about that.
You played other sports too, didn't you?
But I did. I tried a little everything, but basketball was my first love at a very early age. I played 1 year at Aquinas Junior College.
For Charlie Anderson?
There you go.
Yeah.
It was what an experience playing with Coach Anderson. But, Coach Sarver, his son is the athletic director at Hendersonville High School. So I sat with a lot of games with my high school coach. And, I've told the story a lot of times. Coach Sarver, outside of my family, he's the most important role model I've ever had. The coach and the limits that he pushed me to, and he brought more out of me than I had thought I had in myself. So I owe a lot to him, and I've said that every opportunity. But, yeah, basketball, it's still my first love. I'll watch a West Coast NBA Game 4 just the other night when the season kicks off. That's a meaningless game. But, yeah, I love the round ball.
Yeah, you can see the athleticism in what you do. It has always carried over. Do you think part of that is why you're still able to do it now in AEW?
The athleticism?
Yes.
But yeah, I'm
because you keep that if you take care of yourself.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it's because, I've always stayed in relative shape my entire career. But, it's something as time went on, I reevaluated my career every year since I was about 35. 32, 33, 34, 35. Mike, and I told myself in my late 30s, because when I started TNA at 40, you know what? I'm going to step out at 40. Well, I turned 56
in July.
Yeah, in July, and I'm still going. But I've got a passion for it more today than I ever have. During the pandemic, with all the craziness going on, we were all kind of locked down. I told myself, you know what? I'm going to go get in the best possible shape I can, and let's just see what happens. And little things started here and there with independent promotions and WWE and this and that, and then the Ric Flair last match, which you were so gracious to be a part of, that just kind of in a wacky, crazy way got a massive amount of attention. And here I am closing in on my first year, completing my first year at AEW.
But so, you're also in charge of business. Let me make sure I have it right. Business development.
Yeah, I work in the business development. Long story short, it's still a startup company because you throw the pandemic in there. They just celebrated their 4th year on television, really 5 years as a company. That's and it's in the NFL family, the Khan family, the owner of the
What's it like working for the Jaguars guy? I mean, come on. They are great people, though.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Incredible business folks.
Yeah.
She had Mr. Khan and his son, Tony. Tony's, like Conrad, like myself, lifelong wrestling fan. But, that's something that being a third generation, hopefully I can bring some wisdom to the table and some opportunities. And, I dove in last year head first, and I really thought, Mike, okay, because the original kind of agreement was we're going to use you on camera a few times here and there. Well, it didn't turn out that way. It just kind of snowballed.
You're on every week.
Who would have thought? Crazy.
And with your group, I always keep Jay Lethal's going to wrestle, but I keep expecting, well, they'll use some of the other guys, and Jeff will be there to talk. You're wrestling. You're performing every week against some guy half your age.
Yes.
I mean, guys that could be your children, easy.
Oh,
in some cases.
This is my 37th year.
I know.
And there's a lot of 20-year-olds on there. So, to get into a little football, I marveled at Tom Brady.
Right.
how is he competing? And, and he'd get outside the pocket, and he's never been really fast. But, I'd feel like, oh, my God, if this linebacker, runs him down. But, hey, man, he performed at a very high level at I think the toughest game at the toughest spot. So anyway, I'm loving what I do. But director of business development, and there's so many new opportunities, and the business in general. Obviously, WWE leader in the marketplace is red hot. They just merged with UFC and that. But our industry is really hot. You know as well as I do, live event entertainment is massively successful this day and age. You just have to look, which I do. Well, a couple of different Twitter followers. What did the rating do for Amazon on Thursday nights, which just kind of blows me away. And
they're now up to near regular TV audience on streaming. Very close.
I'd still call us young men.
But we are young men.
But as kids, and I was kind of thinking this coming down 65 today, I'm trying to tool what's Mike going to ask me? So the NFL, growing up in this town, you either like the Cowboys, the Steelers, or the Redskins.
You did?
I mean, you only got
maybe the Raiders. Maybe.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. But just the TV presence and cable wasn't even thought of, and to look at it now and the numbers, and it's Thursday night game and Sunday, and we got that Monday, and won't be long where we're going to get Saturday, Sunday, the NFL schedule, and how the game is produced. And I got buddies at Fox Sports, and I always tell them, man, you guys, it is an absolute Hollywood blockbuster. If you start watching at 11 a.m. in Nashville on Sunday, and then you got that late game, it's phenomenal. It's the greatest television sport by far. And I love basketball, but football, there's no peers in that. So, yeah, but the Amazon, we were talking about that,
sure.
the raising. So, live event sports, back to my business, we're on 2 hours on Wednesday night on TBS, an hour on Friday night on TNT, another 2 hours on Saturday night. So, 5 hours of live content is massive, and we're not like you silly football players that have this 16, 18-week season. We're 52 weeks. No.
I know what you're saying.
Being 52 weeks a year is, for a programmer, it's big. It's really, really big. That's not even counting the specials we can do. So,
Jeff, when I went to a pay-per-view recently, and when I go to a wrestling show, which is not as often as
you'd like to,
as I'd like to, quite frankly, but I'm fascinated by everything that goes on. I'm watching the camera position. Yeah. I'm watching them work the timing. I'm watching the referee and how he helps. I'm watching how the performers take care of one another, which is one of the most intriguing things I've ever seen. But I'm watching the show of it. Do you do that when you go to a live sporting event? Are you watching not only the game, but are you watching the production and everything around it?
So, Mike, me and you could talk for a whole. If there's a time limit, you just say shut up.
If Conrad's ever out, I'm available. That's
okay.
all I'm saying.
I got a fascinating story. Yeah, I flew down as a part of my business development to a Jacksonville Jaguar game 2 or 3 Sundays ago. I had to leave there and fly to St. Louis right after. So I jumped on a plane, sit down. Everybody's bored. Guy sits down next to me. We strike up a conversation. He was the director of the game that day, works for CBS.
Okay.
Boy, we struck up that conversation. He actually also does March Madness.
Okay.
Man, in that 90 flight to Atlanta, I wore him out with questions. But to answer your question is, I was asking him, like, how do you get all those shots? And there's 40 cameras or 30 cameras, at March Madness. But, so the basketball, I was asking him, but then get into football. So the short answer to your question is, I absolutely do. And it's just always fascinating because from a wrestling perspective, in the early days, is a 3-camera shoot. Literally, the hard camera, just kind of a fixed camera, and one on each post and all that. And then, you go to 7 cameras and 9 cameras and 16 cameras. And we just did Wembley Stadium, not arena, largest wrestling show in the history of our industry, over 81,000 paid. The amount of cameras and drones and yes. So I have, when I first got to the WWF, I'd worked with my dad for 7 years in the territory, and production WMC studios in Memphis, just much smaller scale.
Lance Russell.
There you go. Dave Brown.
I just met Dave Brown. Great thrill.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, 5 camera shoot, maybe 6. But when I got up to the WWF, I was just amazed at the production and everything that goes with it.
Right.
So I've always been kind of a production nerd, and you don't find that in our industry. I've always had to understand or wanted to understand that first and foremost, we are back to being a business. We're presenting television, and that's very, that's one of the things. Like, okay, Jeff, you're 56 and you're still in the ring. Some guys say Jeff doesn't waste any motion, but you have to understand the whole picture, what we're trying to do here in as a performer. But that all comes from looking through a director's eyes, looking through a producer's eyes, looking through a cameraman's eyes. Just all the little tricks of the trade, because we are a television product. But, sporting events, how you guys capture the emotion, it is, the NFL does it better than anybody.
Well, I want to say this about the Cons, because they have clearly taken what Tony has done in AEW and moved it over to the stadium some for the Jaguars.
Oh, wow.
You can feel it's a very different energy. They always had a good energy there in the early days, but then they became very dated. They did the same thing for 20 years.
Okay.
When he took it over, you could see the elements of the rock concert, wrestling show, giant truck race sort of thing that he brought into it, and vice versa from the wrestling product,
yes.
because I've seen the AEW show, what he does with that.
High energy.
With the high energy, the different looks and the things like that. And it is funny because it really all does translate in a good way. You can't do everything in both places, but the energy makes a lot of sense.
Well, and that kind of going back into that Amazon kind of, at the end of the day, I hate to say this, yes, the viewers, we are ultimately working for the person on the couch, person in the sports bar, all that. But at the end of the day, the advertisers.
Sure.
They're the ones writing the checks. They're the ones that make these sports rights fees go through the roof. So I try to get young guys to understand that on every level, that, hey, it's not so much, and this is something, again, a grandmother lesson. And my dad too. Jeff, kind of get it out of your mind. Let's not really drill in and do what you want to do. And don't even really do what your dad wants you to do. And certainly, because she didn't, Russell, don't do what I want to do. Try to figure out what they want you to do.
Well, you have one of the greatest moments in the history, I think, of American television with one of those moments. I need to read something for an advertiser.
Let's do it.
So then we're going to get it.
Nice segue.
SeatGeek is now the official ticketing partner of the Tennessee Titans. If you haven't heard the name yet, get used to it, because you'll be hearing it a lot more this season. Whether you're buying or selling tickets to Titans games or any other live event in Nashville, SeatGeek is the place to do it. SeatGeek, the new official ticketing partner of the Tennessee Titans, so Titans fans can fan.
Wait, did you just say SeatGeek?
SeatGeek.
Is that SeatGeek.com?
No, just SeatGeek.
I'm trying to do a little
Thank you.
advertising.
I love what you're doing. It's so good.
SeatGeek will be happy with this.
SeatGeek will be on My World with Jeff Jarrett.
Exactly.
I love how you work that. All right. So we're doing this Titans.
Did you say SeatGeek?
I did. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to circle back on that one more time. I'm kidding.
We're doing the Titans at 25 series, and we're having a lot of fun with it, talking to all different sorts of people. Leland Statham from Channel 5 was just in here, one of the all-time great guys.
I love Leland.
I know. Everybody loves Leland. We went to college together, me and Leland.
No,
I've known him forever.
He's kind of the ultimate babyface in Nashville, right?
He doesn't change. He doesn't change, and everybody loves him.
We could go through the history of NBC, CBS, ABC.
Yeah.
I won't name any more, but there's
he's a pretty special guy.
He is.
But the point is, different vantage points of what has happened with our franchise since we came to Tennessee in 1997 and since we became the Titans in 1999. 99, the first year of the Titans. We go 13-3. We finished second in the division to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're in the wild card round.
Okay.
We host the Buffalo Bills on Saturday morning. The game is at 11:30.
It was a Saturday.
It was a Saturday. So the game happens. We're behind 13-12. We go down, we kick a field goal with 1:48 to go. We're going to win the game, 15-13, because we got this great defense, right, Jeff? Well, then they come
Javon.
Javon and everybody, Samari, and I mean all these really good players. Blaine, Marcus Robertson.
See, we could name all these guys.
Eddie Robinson.
Okay.
I could go on and on.
Who's the coordinator?
Greg Williams.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Blitzing from, I mean, he blitzed his own grandmother. He should be on your wrestling show.
Okay.
He's the guy who.
I want Mac. Your current partner.
Definitely. We'll get Mac in here. We'll get Mac in here to see you. So they go down and kick a field goal with 16 seconds to go. Everyone knows what happens after that, which is the Music City Miracle. We win the game.
Oh, boy.
Jeff Jarrett at that point is wrestling for WCW.
Monday Night Nitro.
The Monday Night Wars. So you've got a show in 2 days. You were watching the Titans at that point.
Yes.
On a Saturday, early afternoon is when the game ended. Take us through what goes from there.
Okay, because you just jarred some memory. Because we had, at WCW, we had worked a show. I was wrong. I was not in Buffalo. I watched the game from my, I think it was only a one-room suite, but it was a suite at the Super 8. No, but I wasn't in Buffalo, but I was in Syracuse. Syracuse, New York. We had an event the night before, got into the town late. That's why I was still it was in bed.
Yeah.
So what time did the game come on? Because I've always tried to tell the story, but
the game probably came on,
noon.
I think it was earlier than that because it was, I want to say there were 3 games that day.
So you know what? You have finally kind of solved,
It's okay. I mean, you travel a lot, Jeff.
But I was
Jeff Jarrett is a lot of places. I don't see how you know where you are from one day to the next.
Yeah, Karen, my wife, drives her nuts. I won't remember, hey, you've got to pick up the cleaners and go to the groceries. But to ask where I wrestled in '92, I can tell you the Waffle House I stopped at on I-40. But no. Okay, so you just solved that. That's why I was still – so the game started early. We got in late.
It's over Saturday afternoon at, say, 2:30.
Yeah, yes, but I had watched the most of the game laying in bed and dejected at the end of it. I'm laying back. Oh, boy. And Frank Wycheck, we had become buddies prior 12 months. We'd only been friends about a year, not long, but I was a huge Titans fan. Born and raised here. We didn't have pro sports teams. It was basketball, Vandy, Tennessee. Those were the big events.
Sure.
But laying in bed, and the miracle happened, and I knew that we had Monday Night Nitro in Buffalo on that Monday night. I'm, as you are well aware, I'm a heel. I'm a bad guy. And I said, oh, my gosh.
Let me ask you this before you continue. What would you have done if you were a face at that point? Would you have just had to give it to some?
I would have had the announcer, and now coming down the aisle, weighing 232 pounds, from the outskirts of Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
The opportunity wouldn't have been there.
Okay, so
it worked perfect.
So you're a bad guy at that point.
I'm a bad guy all the way, and I've always felt good in that position. But I immediately, just because, those are the kind of things that Chris Berman, ESPN, just oh my gosh, that wasn't legal, and this and that, and you can imagine even in Syracuse, the local news, and in dressing rooms, there's always fans, and Titans was the new team, and I can just remember traveling when the Preds started or the Titans started through the years. It was, oh, you guys, Nashville doesn't know nothing about pro sports. Anyway, I knew it was a lightning rod, but right when it happened, and I knew this is going to work. I'm going to be working Monday. My first wife, Jill, she's passed away since then, but I called her immediately and said, go right now to Rivergate, because Rivergate Mall. I said, go get me a Titans jersey. She said, where? I said, go to Rivergate. I know they're there. You're going to – anyway, I said, get me a jersey. I said, and you're going to have to Delta Dash it. She's like, what do you got going on? I said, I'm just telling you. Did you see? She said, oh, God, the house is going crazy, and everybody, at home had been watching. To this day, wrestling fans – still either hate me for it if they're Buffalo. Legitimately, I can't believe you did that.
Miracle has happened.
As you know, it was the news in the NFL.
And you're in Buffalo, New York, walking, and they're serious people now.
Oh,
that is
you just need to pour a little gas on wrestling fans' fire, and they went ballistic. They did. It was, again, we're going back to what we talked to. Wrestling creates emotion. Sports create emotion.
Sure.
When you kind of have that lightning rod, and at wrestling, obviously, we give people a license to just kind of let their emotions out, and boy, did they. It was, it's one of my favorite moments in my entire career because I use this word diplomatically. But Mike, you know, is because you understand our business. But that moment was real. Mm-hmm. Look at you. See, you know what I'm talking about. It's not scripted. It's not some wrestling storyline. It's not me and a guy getting in the ring and, you know, putting on a hell of a performance. Jeff wore a Titans jersey right after in their mind, they got screwed.
Well, when I saw you come out, I thought, he's not really going to do this. Because, I mean, they were so they were
livid.
Just absolute. And still, we went there 8 months later for the season opener, and it was easily the most hostile place we had ever walked into.
Wow. And they just believe we cheated, no matter what.
They're the only people in the world who believe it because everyone else has seen the footage that the ball does move backwards. It was clearly a lateral. The only place they don't believe it is in Buffalo, New York. And I had some neighbors who moved here from there, and they were completely lovely people and very nice to my children, wonderful to my wife, didn't have much use for me.
How about that?
Just didn't.
That simple.
I was just they were never ugly to me. But it was just like, yeah, he's okay.
So,
I get it.
So that was in 99, year 2000, 2023.
Same.
There's I don't know how many times I've done 104.5 The Zone through the years. I mean, whether it's TNA or WWF or Ric Flair, I've just been in those studios so much time after time after time. About every time when I stay the extended time when we have callers come in, that will get mentioned.
Could you do that bit today? If the Music City Miracle happened this Saturday and you were going out there on Monday, would you do it again?
In a minute. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate at all. Yeah.
You have to be fearless, though, don't you?
I don't know about that. My set point is that you have to kind of drill down and look through the fans. What's really going to evoke emotion? Not going to be just kind of the golf clap or the golf boo. What's really going to incite them? And nothing does it like a true diehard sport fan. You know, Yankees, Red Sox, Bears, Packers, Sixers, Lakers, whatever rivalry.
Right.
It's just kind of, to me, it's ingrained in our culture. We did Wembley, and I got to talk to a guy. We were both downstairs waiting on cars to come, and we got into an NFL talk. And oh my gosh, you're Tennessee Titan, this and that. And he went back and he remembered. Oh yeah, Eddie George. I mean, he was he knew the whole deal. But there's something about talking sports with other folks that I think is it's just ingrained in human nature. You know, our business. People think it's been around since the 1800s. It's been around 2,000 years. And so good versus evil always exists. It's just who you view as good and evil. Buffalo fans view me and you as pure evil.
I'm pure evil even?
Oh,
Thank
you. Are you kidding me?
Okay, well, I'll take it. But, Jeff Jarrett, it doesn't work, I don't think, if you're not a true Titans fan, because you are.
Oh, okay.
I think if you put that on somebody else and they just walk out there,
for sure.
Because when you walk out there and you know you're so happy that the Titans won,
they believe it.
And I mean, you're not acting at that point. You are really getting it to rub it in their face, and you're overdoing it, obviously. But at the same time, you're like, "This is great. I'm sticking it to them."
Well, to kind of layer that down,
okay,
you've been in this market. Well, you've been in Tennessee your whole life.
Whole life.
Wouldn't you say Nashville has kind of radically changed?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it's just it's not even the same town that we were. But when I first started on the national scene in 1993, working with Vince McMahon, you know, he's like, "Hey, we're going to announce you from Nashville, Tennessee, of course, the Music Door." And I said, "Hey, can you announce me from Music City, USA?" We used to use that back, So I'm very, very proud of the city and always have been. And people, hey, especially coming out of the pandemic, hey, we're visiting Nashville. Yeah. It's a crazy town and Lower Broad and all that. And they're like, "Hey, you're an OG," and I'm like, since day one. I was around when Broadway was nothing happening, when there were no Titans, there were no Preds. So I do have a lot of pride in our town in a big way. But the wrestling audience absolutely knows that. They know that's really a part of Jeff. So to your point.
That's good stuff. The other part of all of it, I think, that really jumps out is what Jeff Fisher did 8 months later. And I want to see how good a bit you would rate this from your writing and story design skills. So we go there to open.
Okay. I don't know if I know this story.
Oh, it's pretty good. We go there to open the 2000 season, Sunday Night Football at Buffalo.
Oh, so game one, no preseason. Game one.
Game one, real game. At that time, the opposing team has a unit introduced like the home team does. Like if the Titans are at home on Sunday, they'll obviously introduce offense or defense. Now the other team just runs out together. At that time, they would introduce the opposing offense or defense. And, I mean, the boos were just – and that's why they stopped doing it. It was just pointless. Well – so Jeff Fisher is having his Friday production meeting with Larry Stone and myself, where we record the pregame interview.
Oh, boy.
And he always had the same meal because he was totally superstitious.
Okay.
So he would go in the cafeteria, he would get one meatball, chips and salsa, something else, carrots or whatever. I mean, he was totally superstitious.
I love a man with great OCD.
Oh, he's totally got it. So he comes in and he starts working on his queso with his chip. He goes, I got to tell you what we're going to do Sunday night. And we think he's going to tell us a play or a special defense or whatever. He goes, we're going to introduce the special teams.
Oh, boy.
and then we're like, what? And he goes, and we're going to introduce Lorenzo Neal and then Frank Wycheck and then Dyson last. And Larry looks at him. I'm like, I've just got this look on my face like, whoa. And Larry looks at him and goes, Coach, I don't know if that's a good idea. And he goes, oh, we're doing it. So we went to break early on the broadcast to make sure that we would be off the air when they did this.
Okay.
Because we just wanted to see it.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's brutal coming in on the buses. They're all over us. They know who we are because we're the broadcast team. Pat Ryan is our color commentator at that point, and Pat played for the Jets, so they already knew who he was. They didn't like him, and he's hollering back at him. I mean, it's just it's got a little energy to it that's special. And about that time, the announcer goes, and for the Titans, they will introduce the special teams. And I mean, you would have thought, I mean, they were so mad.
Yes.
I mean, they were so angry. And by the time they said, and Lorenzo Neal, and then the boos got cosmic in nature. And then Frank Wycheck, and I mean, you'd have thought people were just going to start picking up their chairs and firing them. And then when they got to Kevin Dyson and he threw the arms up or whatever he did, it's the ugliest thing I've ever heard.
Absolutely. That is the story of all stories. I'm going to start using that.
Is that right?
In wrestling, you know what you call that? So when you like this, guys, we're going to wake them up out there. Let's start hot. And starting hot is when the bad guy jumps the good guy. And I said, boy, Fisher started hot. Oh my God.
But you know why he did it? And Jeff Jarrett will love this.
I love the story already.
Okay, but you'll love this. The reason he did it is he wanted the crowd to play themselves out because they booed so hard and they expended all of this energy. They had no impact on the game. We lost the game, but we didn't lose because we fumbled at our own end because we couldn't hear a signal or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a very tactical point
strategy.
Behind. They burned themselves out in pregame warm-ups.
That is beautiful. We do it for different reasons in wrestling, but that is, I love it. That is great strategy.
They were throwing stuff at the bus as we left. I mean, it was just.
We referenced before we started rolling when I went back later at a WCW pay-per-view, and what was the big defensive lineman, Washington?
That's right.
For Buffalo Bills.
Yes, Ted Washington.
Ted.
He was 350 pounds.
Huge.
Yes.
Huge. They were sitting on the front row. And by this time, it's a couple of years later, but they were there and they were involved in my match. And so they got their comeuppance on me, which satisfied the crowd. Okay, yeah, Jarrett got his butt whipped and all that kind of stuff. We worked it into, because everybody knew I'd done it a couple of years before that. But leaving that night, the back of the arena, the Zamboni where it was dumped the ice, the big pile right by the gate and the cyclone fence. Fans were reaching through, getting their ice balls, and just pounding our car. And I said, guys, we need to get security right now. I said, just pull over here. Don't pull through that gate right now.
Right.
Pull through the gate, and they got security and kind of did all that, and then they kind of parted the ways. And
have you ever really been scared in a situation where you thought something could...
Mexico.
Okay.
For sure, Mexico. There was a couple of times down there that, and here's how I always, maybe I'm too dumb to really know, but, having heat and just that being a part of the business. But when some trusted friends that work down there, they come up and said, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm a little concerned about you. And he says it with a straight face, but not looking me in the eye. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, yeah, we got some rough cats out there, and they weren't happy with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, it's heat. And he said, no, we really need to be careful. So a couple of times in Mexico City, we did the fake. In the back, it looked like I got in a car and all this, and then me and my wife Karen went to the other side of the building, got in another car, and pulled out.
Wow.
We did that. Yeah, that was That was when I'm like, I think I need to be a little bit more careful.
Don't you think the podcast, which, by the way, My World with Jeff Jarrett, I wanted to say it right because it's on the shirt, so I didn't want to say it wrong.
Appreciate that.
Don't you think that's kind of your book?
So, you know what? I had the conversation. I was in Philly this week. Longtime wrestling fan up there, collector. He's an autograph collector and got everybody, and he's very respectful. And he's like, man, I told you this like 20 years ago. I got a guy who wants to write the book. I got who wants to write the book. I said, you're probably not going to get one out of me. But do you listen to the podcast? He said, I do every week. I said, I think that's my book. I said, maybe they can write some biographies off that, but my book, when I sit down, I do. A lot of folks do lots of different podcasts. I take it very serious because of just that it is my story. We like to say on our pod, it's the story behind the story. And so, to me, I kind of write a chapter every week. And that's the thing that my pastor asked me one time. He's like, hey, a podcast? He said, man, I can't listen to your whole episode. I said, I know you can't, but there others are. Because Conrad, he likes to do a long form, 2.5 hours at times, which I'm thinking, that's a lot of talking. But he's like, Jeff, trust me. I want to make sure that we kind of get every angle of the story.
Well, I try to cut the grass to it.
There you go. You're not the only one.
It's perfect. It's perfect for that. By the way, when you're talking about waking them up, there's nothing better to wake them up than with Dunkin'. You like how I did that? Jeff Jarrett supports my Dunkin' read.
Yes.
It's always game on with Dunkin', so grab a coffee and kick off the action, whether that's drinking a cup of coffee on your way to the game or grabbing one to go before watching the game at home. Dunkin' is always there to help you get your game on. Just like the pros, we need to be at our best come game time, which is why Dunkin' is the most important part of your game day ritual. Because it's always the best call for football. America runs on Dunkin'.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Will you ask me a question? Say, hey, Jeff, what are you drinking?
Hey, Jeff, what are you drinking?
Oh, I happen to be drinking some Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
That away. How much coffee do you consume?
Great question. I'm running a little late, but at noon I cut it off. Not today, but by noon, about 3 cups. Not too much.
The amazing thing, you mentioned you're 56. You are in better shape than you were probably when you were 26. I mean, it is really impressive. Our players have all these people around them now. And it's really amazing. When I got here, I mean, the training table was steak, baked potato, and all the ice cream you could eat, and macaroni and cheese. And now some of our players are vegans. We have a nutritionist. We have all kinds of coaches in different areas. How has that enabled you, that sort of thinking enabled you to keep going and to be where you are right now?
It is, when I tell you, almost everything.
Wow.
Dr. Tim Adair, he's right up the road. Got together with him, oh my gosh, 92, 93. So I'd been in the business 6-7 years, not long. He's an applied kinesiologist. So he guided me from the very beginning, very holistic. I bet I've taken less than 10 Advil in my life. Been sober 6 years this past Wednesday. So outside of alcohol, which I say that respectfully. But,
Sure. And congratulations.
I appreciate that. But, I was never a pain pill guy, which I think is in our business and a lot of business, it's so prevalent in society. But the nutrition, I truly believe this, and I try to tell this to anybody to listen. You can't be anything else but you are what you eat, period. And you are how you live your life. If you don't get sleep, that triangle. There's an emotional component, there's a physical component, and a mental component. I just think that triangle, the spiritual as well. And if the three sides of the triangle and the spiritual being up the top, kind of being the fourth pillar that holds everything up, if you're not healthy in every side, you're going to break down. You just are. So he got me into stretching years ago. Obviously cardio. I've been working coming out of the pandemic. My buddy Corey, who I'd watched him train people for years, that was another thing. I kind of said, all right, Jeff, throw the keys of the car to somebody else. Let them train you. And that has been revolutionary. That's what's gotten me in the best shape, is that I'm listening to somebody else as far as the high reps and all that kind of stuff. But my diet's clean, and I'm just really focused on every area of my life. I try to get better. I try to get Jeff better every day. The first 90 minutes of my day, 5:15 to 6:45, are all about focusing on my mental space, my spiritual space, and then it just kind of sets me right for my nutrition throughout the day. But it's and I say this. We're having a lot of fun here, but you've drove me down this. There's no reason I should be alive. And I truly believe that, the disease of addiction is a disease that affects your brain and the way you think. And I went down a bad road with alcohol. And again, by the grace of God, he woke me up and said, hey, man, it's time to change. And I did. Went to treatment, came out of that, and my life has radically changed in the last 6 years. And that 90 minutes of every day, I've done it every day for 6 years. And the consistency, and I think athletes can relate to that they didn't become, there's certain guys, I think there's a quote, talent will get you, everybody at this level is talented, period. But that persistency and that drive and going above and beyond, everybody expects you to practice. It's what you do. It's what you get paid for. What are you going to do extra? What are the different tools in the toolbox that you have? They're going to take you up. And I try to kind of focus my personal life, my work life, my family life. Everybody kind of does C-level. What am I going to do above and beyond that? And it's something that gives me internal happiness and peace and joy that I never thought existed, but it does.
That's very special. I appreciate you sharing that. I really do, because we've always been very proud of you. Before you and I knew each other, always very proud of the way you represented Nashville, and always wanted to say you were from here. And people, even when you were a heel, we were always pulling for you, because that meant a lot. Because there was a time when it was like, oh, it's it's not that big a deal to be from here. But the fact that you were very proud of it, that you always said it, that you mentioned it, that your performance overall, I mean, you are a premier performer. You really and truly are.
It's 2023 and you're saying that.
But I'm talking about, there are some people, my wife and daughter just went to see Adele. You think about what Taylor Swift does. You think about what Aaron Judge does for the Yankees. Over and over. Steve McNair and Eddie George did it for us. There's certain people in life who just have that gene. It's not about how good a singer or how good a player. Garth Brooks has it. It's more about just being able to command an audience and to tell a story and to put on a great show at whatever endeavor you put yourself into. And Jeff Jarrett, you're one of the best in the country at doing that, not just for what you do, but for anything. And it makes it so enjoyable. When you come on, people stop to watch. Well, I just wanted to ask you, your dad got to see all of that. What did that mean to him?
Like a lot of father and sons, we had a lot of rocky roads. We went up and down, and that's working within the same industry. It's no dad. I was always his little boy. No matter how that's life. But in my darkest days and coming out of that, and he just kind of, witnessed the transformation. And then, Mike, you were a part of this. I had done some different things, independence and NWA and all that, coming out of that, and I'd had my stint back in the Royal Rumble, but just little things here and there. But the Ric Flair last match, and that night was so special for so many different reasons. It wasn't really supposed to happen. It wasn't going to happen. That wasn't me and Conrad or Rick's or natural plan, just kind of the pieces of the puzzle. This guy couldn't do it. I was kind of like the third option. It was because we really wanted, and that match that night was all about Rick. Mm-hmm. It was Ric Flair and others, period. But that night and how life happened, Undertaker's on the front row, Bret Hart's on the front row, Mick Foley's on the front row, Kid Rock's on the front row. They're there for Rick, and I get that. But my dad, he's never sat on the front row to watch a wrestling match, but he witnessed that night.
Wow.
And afterwards, he just was, oh, you'll get me. He's very proud of the moment that he's like, damn, son, you're 55 years old. Where did that come from? And I just, hey, I appreciate that. But, he passed away in February, February 14th. But we got to laugh and tell stories, and we would meet out at Ruby's, once a month for lunch, the last couple of years and all that. But I think it was, again, because all of our rocky roads, and we reconciled, years ago, but our relationship got better and better and better. But in his core, in the core of a core, yes, he wrestled for 8 years and super successful. He's been in the car business and the land business. He's been he's an entrepreneur. When he passed away, he had, 14, 16 rental properties. He was a businessman through and through. But in his very core, he's a promoter. That is what drove Jerry Jarrett sun up to sundown. And for me, he was a part of that. He did the podcast. But for him to kind of ride shotgun in that type of environment, I knew it was special for him, and it made it that much more special for me that in the last year of his life, he was a part of the biggest independent wrestling show in history.
Yeah.
It really was. It was cool. So, yeah, it was very, very special.
Thank you.
No,
thank you so much for being a Titans fan.
Oh, go Titans!
And when we get Buffalo next,
I'm gonna
we will have the jersey to you within moments.
Okay. Hey, now I got the hotline.
So we've got to have a 2.0 in Buffalo.
Believe me, I'd be happy to do that. I better not say this too loud, but can you imagine if it happened in a Jaguar situation? What would I do?
Oh, well, it has kind of. We beat them 3 times in 1 year to keep them out of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but that's years going by. I'm talking about now.
If we get them and knock them out or something.
Oh, my God. My day job does.
Yes, it does.
Go Titans through and through.
Thank you, Jeff Jarrett.
Hey.